Welcome back to Level Up. I'm John Cale, the host of the show today. Today we are going to be dealing with a very powerful one-word impact that will definitely change your life and bring success or not. The title of our episode today is the one-word answer for success in life: communication. Without communication in life, you are in trouble. If you don't learn how to communicate across the board in relationships, in work, and in life in general, because as long as you are breathing air and walking on the planet, you are going to have to communicate with somebody. Even your hairy friends, you have to communicate with, okay? So I have a question. Do you feel stuck in a rut in your career and relationship? This word, communication, could actually be the roadblock. This could be the thing that's actually causing you to be stuck. And, it may be something that when you're dealing with people, have you ever been in a situation where you said something to somebody and you kind of got the deer in the headlights look? You know, if you've never had this, you don't understand it. But if you drive cars my granddaughter's with us today. We're going to introduce her in just a second. And she doesn't understand deer in the headlights. So we'll explain that to her because clearly she's not driving yet. At almost 6.5, actually. But that deer in the headlights look, right, where you're driving and the deer is in the road and it freezes and it just looks at your headlights like, whoa, what's going on? And you've had situations where you've communicated like that and people just stare at you and you wonder, did I speak a different language? Did something go wrong? Well, we're going to talk about all types of communication today. We're going to look at facts about communication. We're going to look at secrets. We're going to look at keys to unlock it for you. So again, I would tell you that you need to really pay attention and take some mental notes, or maybe take some notes on your phone or hard copy. Because remember, if you don't take what the information is we're providing and put it into your life and act on it, it won't change, right? And we're going to talk about hearing versus listening in a little bit. So, guys, we typically need this more in our lives. Unfortunately, this is a situation where the women around us have us beat. They normally communicate a little better. They listen better. Most of the time, they mature a little bit earlier than we do. And most of the time, guys are the ones who typically need to learn to communicate a little bit better. It's not that the girls are smarter, right? It's that they have a way to take what they're thinking and get it out. We can think the good stuff, but we have a problem getting it out, right? And that's where we run into challenge. So let me introduce some guests that are here today with us, all right? In the studio, as you can see today, we have my daughter, Whitney, here. Whitney is a millennial mom and wife. Whitney has a psychology degree, which is really good because she can make sure we don't get crazy here or we don't do anything completely nuts when we're in our podcast. And she's owner of a business franchise as well, working with a lot of Gen Z employees.
Yes.
I also have my wonderful son-in-law, Jeff, here. I've known Jeff now for 20 years. You and Whitney have been married how long, Jeffrey?
12 years.
About 12 years now,
Mm-hmm.
right?
13 in September.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Jeff is also a business owner in the franchise with Whitney. Jeff has also owned another business, and Jeff has done all kinds of different things. There's pretty much not a lot of things Jeff can't do, honestly. I mean, Jeff is somebody who can look at a situation, look at a problem, and get in and fix it. And he's a great husband and a great dad and a great son-in-law. So great to have him here. I'm not saying any more compliments for you. And we're done with the compliments.
I'm going to ride that for a while.
And then, last but not least, we have my granddaughter, their daughter, Miss Stella. Say hello, Miss Stella.
Hi.
Stella is 6.5 years old, right? And you're going to be 7 when? October. She's going to be the big 7. She is here for her first podcast appearance, and she is here for moral support for mom and dad. And Stella may have random opinions. We may ask her some questions and just see what she has to say about some different things, but she's here to just be a part of it. And she has her buns with her. They're saying hello to you right now, as
Yes.
you could just notice you heard her over on the side. Stella, you have the one thing that I would want to tell people about you is that do you still want to be a coroner? Is that part of what you want to do still? Mm-hmm. Okay. So at 6.5, she's intrigued by the medical field and is interested in being a coroner. So Stella's involved in gymnastics and all kinds of fun, different things as a 6-year-old. Lots of energy and lots of fun. So Stella, thanks for being here with Mom and Dad. Okay. So let's talk about some facts about communication that you have to accept. I think if we're going to talk about communication, there are some basic facts that you need to accept about communication, okay? And we're going to, this is just an open discussion, guys, so we'll kind of go back and forth on this, get different opinions. So both Jeff and Whitney are millennials, okay? But what's interesting for those of you who are listening to the podcast is that they are working with a couple dozen Gen Z people in their business. Like the majority of all their employees are Gen Z. So they understand what's happening in that environment. Jeffrey is a little bit more mature millennial, maybe headed toward upper millennial, maybe getting close to being an Xer, but not quite. And Whitney is definitely a solid millennial, okay? So Jeff's a little bit more mature than Whitney. We'll just leave it at that. All right, so some facts about communication that you have to accept as we talk about this concept today. Well, number one, it will separate you from the crowd. So if you learn to communicate, it will be something that will separate you from the crowd of people that you run with, because your ability to communicate and work with people is something that is not normal, okay? In the world we live in today, communication is not something that everybody has the ability to do. In fact, Gen Z doesn't really like to talk a lot to people face to face. They like relationship, right? But they don't like to talk face to face. They get anxious about it. They also, the other thing that you guys struggle with in the communication realm is it causes anxiety. And you're just more comfortable sending a text or sending an email, right? So number one, it'll separate you from the crowd. Number two, if you learn to communicate and understand that communication is the GPS for your life success. So what I would tell you is be sure you don't put in the wrong coordinates, right? As you know, driving a car, right? You understand that if you put an address into the GPS or Google Maps or whatever it is that you use, as you go, it's going to take you where you put what you put in, right? Mm-hmm. The address you put in. And I don't know if you guys have ever put in a wrong address and found yourself lost somewhere, but it's not pleasant when you have a wrong address and you end up realizing I've been going the wrong way for a long time, right? And that's kind of what being able to communicate does. It is a GPS for your life success. If you learn to communicate, it's going to put you on the path where you need to be. Now, I'll tell you, I just recently went to Jacksonville, Florida with my brother and my son and 2 great nephews. Long drive down there. On the way home, we were on the phone talking, and I had the information in my GPS. I mean, I had put it into the map, into Google, but I had the sound off. And I got to talking on a phone call, and my wife said to me, hey, what time are you going to be home? And I said, well, let me see. And I looked down at my phone and I'm like, well, something is seriously wrong here. The thing is messed up because there's no way it's going to be this time when I get home. And then all of a sudden I realized, because I had the sound off, that I had missed a split on the freeway. And we had driven 52 miles south instead of on the road we were supposed to be on. And so I was almost an hour out of my way, and you just don't magically turn around and you're back, and I had to drive back another almost an hour. So literally we did an hour and a half of extra 104 miles. Even though I had the GPS, I didn't have the sound on, right? So my point is, we get used to these things and we realize that they really do work, but if we don't use them correctly, it can mess us up. All right. The third thing I want you to realize is that you cannot get by communication in life. You have to accept the fact. You might say, well, this may work for other people. It may not work for other people. I don't know if I need to do it, but you cannot get by it. You're going to have to do it unless you live in a bubble in a corner and like I've said before, you order DoorDash, and you do it all through, your phone, right? You're going to have to communicate with people. So you got to accept the fact that you're not going to get by it. And then I want you to also realize that you might be uncomfortable with it, right? It may not be your norm. This is going to stretch you. You're going to have to, in many cases, many of you who are listening, this is going to be something that's going to stretch you, and it's not going to be easy. But I promise you, the win is stronger relationships, better jobs, more pay, more happiness in your life. Okay? Are you willing to stretch a little bit so you can have some of that? Okay? So I want to give you a couple quotes that I think are pretty powerful quotes. Here's one by Bernard Shaw. And Bernard Shaw was a former CNN news anchor. He was a big anchor back several years ago for CNN. And he said, regarding communication, the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. Now, if you think about that, that's a pretty powerful quote, right? The illusion that it's taken place. Like, you think you communicated. You think you've told somebody something and they got it. And then you walk away, but in reality, you're making an assumption because they didn't really understand that it was real. Have you guys faced that before, Whitney, Jeff? Have you guys anything come to mind when you talk about communication and misunderstandings?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I think that especially happens in marriage. Communicating, I may explain something that's going on or something, and I'm just assuming she understands it the way that I do, but that's not always the case, and it really happens the other way around.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is he saying that's your problem then?
No. I think what I'm gathering is you said he's more mature and it's my communication. I don't know. No, I think it's.
I'm using the word mature interchangeably with other words.
No, I think it is like that, assuming that the understanding has been clear, but it's not, because there's kind of gaps. I think I find that I thought more of like in a training situation with the business. So if I say, go do this, for example, we just talked about this in our employee team meeting. If you say, hey, can you go do this task? Well, to the person giving that direction, it's like, well, you can't really give direction without defining it. Like, it's super important to define it, because your idea of go do this task can look very different than someone else's idea of go do this task. Mm-hmm. So, which kind of, I think, plays into expectations. So, okay. Like what your expectation is. So I think communicating it like in the layers, defining it.
Stella, what's going on? What are you thinking about right now? Anything? You want to say anything? Anything?
Anything?
You want to say hi? You having a good time?
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. When you ask mommy or dad for a question, like you want permission to do something, do they understand sometimes, or do you think they don't? They get confused.
Sometimes Dad gets confused.
Oh, Dad gets confused.
I get confused.
Okay.
I'm more mature, but I get confused easily.
See, this makes sense.
This is awesome. And not only are we doing a podcast on communication, but we're having family therapy right here. So that's awesome. All right.
So Dad gets confused.
Dad gets confused. Okay.
He's like, what are you saying?
Yeah. Okay. So let me give you another quote. I thought this one was really good. Words are, of course, the most powerful drug used by mankind. I never thought about it that way before, but it's really an interesting perspective. That was by Rudyard Kipling, who was an English writer in the 1890s, a very popular writer. And he, I think he brings a new meaning to the word drug there, right? That they are the most powerful drug used by mankind. Because I want you to think about this, right? Those of you who are listening, I mean, just think about this. If you do something, typically you've had thoughts to do it, right? And many times, most of the stuff that we do, we actually go and do because we've talked with somebody and somebody has requested something of us, or they've told us something about something, and we're motivated by what? To go do it, right? It's by their words. Mm-hmm. So words are so powerful in being able to put them together in a powerful presentation in a communication fashion so that they have the ability to go do something, right? So people can actually do something. So I think that's a pretty powerful quote. Here's one by Stephen Covey. Stephen Covey is a business legend. For those of you who are in business or sales in any way, know that Stephen Covey wrote the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One of the things I would tell you is read the book, right? I'm not going to get into that, but this guy's a legend, right? Anybody in business or sales knows The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Stephen Covey said the biggest communication problem is we do not listen to understand. We listen to reply, right? So what do you guys think about that? Any thoughts?
Sometimes I know I've heard that a lot in context with communication. And I think when you're listening to reply, you're not really listening. You're almost thinking of like, I'm going to close the deal. What's my next comeback? What's my next refute? Instead of listening to understand where they might be coming from. I know we have a couple team members who we just process differently. And I know even like you and I process differently. So even though I'm super extroverted and outgoing and talk a lot, when I'm processing something, I'm actually thinking a lot of the processing is internal. And when I'm speaking about something, I have some team members, even Stella, Jeff, like they process actually externally. So they want to jump in and ask questions right away so that they understand and so they don't forget their questions. And I view it as annoying because like you're interrupting me. And it's like, well, no, they're just trying to understand, So I think that you have to try and listen and be okay, like receiving those questions as a way of understanding and as a way of them hearing clearly what you're saying, even though it might be different than you, because not everybody communicates the same way.
Right.
And I think restating the question, it's not always that way with, like you said, with male and female, it's not always that way, but by and large, it is generally the whole guy brain, girl brain thing. And restating it is, I think, kind of sometimes when you're trying to just get something done, it can seem like, oh, I just want to make this clear. Like, wasn't this clear? But a lot of times taking the extra second to restate it, it's like, oh, okay, no, that's not what you were saying or what you meant, or even with Stella.
Yep. One of the big problems that I think happens today, other than Ethan knocking over the clock, it's the token thing for our episode. He has to do it. In fact, he did it again. So it's okay. This is just organic and real, man.
Yeah, it is.
This is the way it is. If you want, about 5 minutes from now, we can do it one more time.
Yeah, something to look forward to.
No, just messing with you. So one of the things that's really interesting is I think this generation is very much about being ready to reply rather than listening and paying attention to what someone's saying to them. They're already thinking about, I'm going to say this. And if you're ready to say this, you cannot be listening to everything that someone says to you. And if you've already decided this is what I'm going to say, you can't process what they said to you, right? And here's the problem with that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this, right? This is a defensive mode. In reality, there are people I know that when you talk to them, right? And you folks who are listening, you may know people like this. When you talk to them, the first thing that happens is, well, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. It's not my fault, right? It's a reason and a case immediately of defense, right? And most of the time, you don't need to have a defense, right? You're just saying, hey, here's a situation. You're not saying you're the problem, right? It's just a base situation. And so I think that's a big one, right? That people don't really listen. They're waiting to reply and they get impatient. I mean, I know my 15-year-old son, he is like master of this because he's ready. When I try to talk to him, he's always like in a rush, right? And I'm like, well, I know you're 15 and you got like all kinds of stuff going on. Your business, you're so busy. And I'm like, what's the rush? And he'd just look at me like, huh? And he's just ready. He wants to get moving. So
it's like that. It's like the way they communicate, like you said on social media. It's like that click, Like, okay, I say this, I text this, I send, I'm done.
Yeah, I move on.
I'm over it. It's like, so a discussion back and forth is kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah, you almost have to shake them in order to get the attention. So I have a word for today. When you listen in, you know that normally I try to assign a word if I can that matches the podcast. And the word for today is revelation, right? And the word revelation basically means defined a surprise, an unknown fact that's made known in a very dramatic way. So it's something that comes to you that maybe you don't know, you weren't expecting, but it's a very dramatic impact and it comes in a dramatic way into your life, okay? Here's the thing. It can be good or it can be bad, right? It can go either way. Is there a revelation, those of you who are listening, revelation that you've had and experienced recently? Something that just kind of blew your mind, right? And just you couldn't even understand how in the world this could take place, right? I'm hoping today, as we talk about the things about communication that are blocks, that you can identify these things in your life and remove them, right? That you will have a revelation, that you will have new information that will be very helpful for you. I can tell you this is going to happen all of your life, okay? I can also tell you that, I recently had a revelation the other day, something that blew my mind. I have an account that I wanted to get to that's been an account in the bank for quite a while because all of a sudden our roof needs replaced on our house. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to go close that out so I can get money to pay for my roof. So I call them and I'm like, yeah, and I'm like going forward and ordering all the stuff and we're getting the contractors. And I call the place to close the account and she comes back and says, hey, so you're not going to be able to take this money. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm over the right age. I won't tell you my age, but I'm over the age where I'm allowed to take it and not get penalized. Okay. And she's like, yeah, but this particular one, they said you can't take it till you're 62. And I'm like, huh? What are you talking about? And they put a stipulation on it that I had no idea was on it. And I couldn't get to that money now for a couple years. I'm not able to get to it. Even to the point where the financial advisor that I know said to me, why in the world were you not able to get this? Right. And he's like, I've never heard of this before. And so that was a significant revelation out of nowhere, a surprise unknown fact that made a big impact in my life. Okay. A very big revelation. Jeffrey, anything in your life recently from a revelation perspective that came out of nowhere? I think I might know, but I'll let you share it.
I got to tell you, I was thinking you were going to ask me that. I am drawing a complete blank.
Are you really?
I am. I'm stunned.
Are you really?
My revelation is that on the spot, I can't think of a revelation. Help me get where are you going with that?
Well, I was thinking about the fact that you guys just purchased a franchise and the first heavy weekend of your franchise purchase. Yeah. All of your financial systems crashed and burned.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that would go to the revelation bad side.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
The revelation of that for you to unpack was about the lack of the training within this particular organization. It's not congruent. Training in an IT realm, every different person has a different approach. And different people don't know the same things to troubleshoot. It was very, very interesting.
The revelation for me, which I knew this, is that I can do a lot of things, but when it comes to tech, that's probably my weakest category. Mm-hmm. And so like we were just discussing in the first week of owning this business, we had a catastrophic computer system failure. And my revelation is that I was at the complete mercy of over the phone tech support, and all the complications that come through that.
For didn't you spend 12, 15 hours your time on the phone?
It had to have been at least over the course of a week, about 13 hours plus on the phone with different tech guys. I mean, I went through the whole list of tech guys, and what is amazing is each one went through a process. Once you finally reach the tech guy, you realize you're at the mercy of the phone system. Press 1 for this. Press 2 for that.
Right.
Press 3 if it's an emergency.
Yeah, I know.
And once you get through that and you get to the tech guy, and of course the original guy you talked to is never available, so it's the new guy, and then you got to explain the whole situation again. And the hardest thing for me was trying to explain our problem again and again, but not really knowing the terminology to use, not knowing the right words to use.
So they could get it.
Right. Like, my feeble knowledge is, I think the hard drive crashed. Oh, well, what about this? And are you seeing this screen? And what with this drop down menu? And I'm like, slow down. I don't understand the words you're saying. Not only can words and communication be a language barrier because of accents and where people are from and over the phone, and phone connections can be difficult to hear. So there's that component of it. But there's also with words, when someone in IT is explaining something, it's easy to them. They're like, oh, we'll just click this, and I'm going to check that. And I'm like, okay, I don't even know what that word means, let alone where am I supposed to click when?
Yep.
Like that is a huge barrier. And that was that was the revelation to me, is how unaware I was of certain terminology and how things work.
Yeah.
And I was at the complete mercy of a group of guys over 13 hours who, to this point, it's still not fixed right.
Well, one other thing to say about that is it was a revelation because you had no idea it was going to happen. You didn't know how to, but here, this goes to the point of what we're talking about with communication.
Oh,
This goes to a customer service communication issue where these guys were presuming, hey, like, just do this, flip here, do that, and you didn't know, right? And that happens. I mean, this happens to me. I get on a phone call and people, and we're going to talk about this. This is right now, some of the points we're talking about, right? That people don't understand that they're looking at their world and they think that that's the norm, right? And it's not.
Yep.
right.
Everybody comes from a different background, right? It'd be like you working on a car and telling them, well, do this, do that, do this other thing. And they'd be like, what are you talking about, right? But to you know those parts. You know those things.
Right.
So I know that it was very, very frustrating time for Jeff and Whit during that. Stella, can I ask you, like, were mom and dad pretty upset over this whole thing with the computers at the store? Were they they were pretty frustrated, huh? Yeah?
Or Dad.
Dad was. Okay.
Do you remember what I told the one IT guy?
Do you remember what
Do you
Dad
remember
said
what I said?
to the guy on the phone
Oh, this is good. We have to share.
about his life?
This is clear Now, when we talk about being clear with your communication, right? It doesn't get any more clear than this.
You don't remember?
You don't remember?
You'll remember when Dad.
Yeah, tell him, Jeff.
Okay, so
then we'll move on to our road
around
bus.
between hours 10 and 12 in the tech support, and I don't even know what call, I went from Sherman to Clark to Brian to then Keem, and I had reached, like, explaining the whole situation again to Keem of what, because I went in the next day and the problem wasn't fixed, and I said, hey, I was working with Sherman yesterday. And I'm like, can you look at the notes and bring yourself up to speed, and I'll fill in the gaps. And he's like, oh, well, Sherman put in here, yeah, he was working on that. But it says here in the notes, he just decided not to move forward with the rest of the process. And I was like,
Just moving on.
I'm sorry. What? And Keem then was trying to explain, like, well, we can try doing this. I'm like, Keem, listen, man. I was at a break. I was so amped up. I was like, look, man, I don't think you understand how stressful this has been. Like, everything that I'm experiencing with your team over this past week, I want you to think about this tonight when you're laying in bed. I want you to think about the fact that you are shortening my life. Your team has put so much stress on me over the last 10 to 12 hours of tech support that I know that you've taken time off my life.
Right. I think you made an interesting.
It's pretty clear.
That is very clear. I think you made an interesting point, though, about training, and you think about it in the realm of training in, troubleshooting, customer resolution issues, things like that. But really, like, when we discuss communicating with others, we've really been trained.
Yeah.
So we talked about that a little bit in the relationship episode too, but we've been trained in our form of communication knowingly and then, like, unknowingly.
Yep.
So the way you communicate, parts of you are just default mode. So
let me give you a visual for everybody listening, for you guys here. Let me give you a visual to think about as we talk about these few things that are things that can be removed to help you become a better communicator and change your life. Most all of us, you watching and listening, all of us around this table know what dominoes are, right? We've probably all played dominoes. Fun game, kids play them. Have you played dominoes, Stella? Have you played dominoes before? You like dominoes? Have you set them up before, like one after another, and push the one on the end and they all go down like that, right? Yeah, right. That's exactly right.
Yes.
So what I want you to think about as a visual, as we continue to wrap and move into the second piece of our podcast, is that dominoes. You put them all together. And you hit the one, and as long as they are together enough, close enough, they all keep hitting, and we could line them up all around the table. We could have 500 dominoes, and every single one of them would fall. And it would be so cool to watch, right? But what happens if you take a couple of the dominoes out? If you take a couple of the dominoes out of the line, the dominoes come to it, and they stop. That's it. It doesn't go any further because there's no more dominoes to hit, and there's a break. Right? In the run of the dominoes, there's a break. Now, you could just push the next domino, right? And it'll start again. And they'll go and go and go and go. But what happens if I have a couple more that are out? Then it'll stop again, right? So what you get is a start and a stop in the chain where it's broke. It won't go, okay? Mm-hmm. And what I want you to understand is that there are multiple areas of connections. And you can look at the table, right? If we had all the dominoes laid out, you might have 4 break points, right? Where the dominoes where they stopped, okay? But at the end of the day, it's one big connection, but there are breaks all over it, okay? This is the way that communication works, right? It's kind of like dominoes. You want communication to be like boom, and it just rolls. You don't want breaks. You don't want to have a crash or a break in the chain of your communication. You want it to just run. All right. So a visual for you to think about a little bit when we talk about this. So one of the first areas that I think that is a big roadblock for many of you listening, for folks out there, is forgetting that not everyone sees the world like you do. If you want to become a person who can communicate well, this is a disciplined thought process, right? Jeff, you said something a minute ago, right? That is exactly this point. That when you were talking, I said we're going to talk about that. Mm-hmm. Not everyone sees the world like you do. These guys were talking to you like you were a computer IT guy. Why? Because they were computer IT guys, right? We look through life at other people, and it's our norm. It's the way we see things, right? Have you been in a situation with somebody where you've been talking with them, sharing something with them, and literally you thought, like, am I invisible, right? Are these words really coming out of my mouth? Mm-hmm. Am I speaking a different language? Because they're just not getting it, mm-hmm. right? They're just not getting it because you're clearly explaining it from your perspective. But the thing is, that person may not in any way have the ability to accept that. Mm-hmm. They're not you, right? I can tell you this. I had an example just happened to me going to Florida that blew my mind. We decided to go to Dairy Queen and go through the drive-through. Remember, I have 3 teenage boys with me. So it's always about food. Where are we going for dinner? What are we having for lunch? I want to go to Waffle House for breakfast, right? Which was a good idea. Waffle House was awesome. But we decided to go to Dairy Queen. We get in the line. We sat in the Dairy Queen line for almost 15 minutes and not moved. We didn't move for 15 minutes. And, I'm trying to be, really mature about this and not lose my mind. And finally, we're all sitting there, and finally the car moves, and we get up to the speaker, and the guys in the back, but the teenagers are saying, "This isn't it. This isn't where you're supposed to order. This isn't the place." They're all just on me, and I'm like, "Would you guys just shut up? This is the place. Here's the speaker. This is the place," and I can't get over to it. I'm a little bit out, and the manager comes out and says, "Hey, just go on and pull up to the window and place your order. Just go up there, place your order at the window." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So we wait a little bit longer. I get to the window. I sat at the window for at least a minute or two, and the guy comes over at the window and he says to me, "Hey, so do you have the like 2 ice cream cones?" And I'm like, "I don't have anything. I haven't even ordered yet. Your manager came out and told me to pull up here to the window and you would take my order." He's like, "Oh, okay, I'll be right back." And he literally leaves me sit there for another 2 minutes. He disappears into the store somewhere. I'm still sitting there. I'm like, we haven't even ordered food yet. We've been 20, 25. I mean, I'm like, he comes back and he goes, "Hey, so would you mind just going around and getting in the line again and going back through and ordering? Because we got customers that we need to wait on." Wow. And I'm like,
wow.
I'm like, am I invisible? What am I? You want me to move out of the line and go back through this process so you can, like, what am I? Am I not a customer? I said, "Yeah, I mind. I'm not doing it." I am not moving from this place right here. I'm not going to pull around. He goes, "I'll be right back with you." He leaves again. And I'm still sitting there. I haven't even ordered my food yet. I'm still sitting there, and finally, my head popped off, and I just left. I just pulled away, right? But my point, communication, right? Mm-hmm. Like, people's outlook, this guy's outlook, and the management of that Dairy Queen's outlook on customer service was not at all. There's bad training and leadership going on at that Dairy Queen, right? And that hurt my head because as a person running a business, I just can't even tell you what I would do in a situation like that if one of my employees did that. Mm-hmm. So, it all comes down to people actually think differently than we. And why is this, right? Because we live with us every day. You live with you every day. So your world is normal to you, right? We come to it typically in one way. Our thoughts are about us. Our thoughts are about our situation. And here's where learning to communicate really comes into play. You have to get past that and stop and say, okay, what about what this person is feeling? Where are they coming from? How are they approaching this? What do I know about them, right? Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Anything you've experienced at the shop, in your business or anything like that?
Something I've realized more recently is as the age gap between myself and the employees increases, I have recently learned, as much as even the other night, is that as you gain more life experience, I think human nature is you just kind of gently assume that everyone else kind of knows what you know. This is kind of under your point. And so I saw this live in front of me the other night. I had asked an employee, I'm like, "Hey, I need you to clean a couple of these racks for our product." And she's like, "Oh, okay, that's fine." I'm like, "Yeah, just put it in the sink and, clean it up, make it look like this one." Mm-hmm. And one that I had done. And so she was working on it. And then I left the area and I came back and I saw it out and I'm like, "What's this?" And she's like, "Oh, it's a done rack. It's clean." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "Well, does it look like this one?" And I wasn't saying it in like a demeaning way, but I was like, "Does it look like this rack here that I did?" And it was a bit of a deer in the headlights exchange. And in that moment, I realized that I have created an assumption of a level of like, what does clean mean? What does cleaning a rack mean? Mm-hmm. And to that employee, that was clean. But for me, it was, and I realized that like, okay, so this means that I can't assume that they understand what my level of expectation is. And also, I can't assume that someone who's 16 understands what cleaning means. Mm-hmm. Like we got to go back to the basics. And so like, as you get older and you know more, you just take things for granted that you know. And now working with younger and the Gen Z is that they might not know some of these basic things. Yeah. And it's not their fault, but
it's amazing because it's our perspective, right? Mm-hmm. When I was meeting with Sophia, who was on our podcast last time with relationships, she works for a very large company, and we were talking about sales. This is really funny. I was telling her about how I used to have to write my letters out. I would literally write the letter physically and give it to a secretary and the secretary would type the letter in a typewriter initially, and then they got word processors, right, that were like computers, but only right there they used a floppy disk. She would print it, give it back to me to proofread, and then I would proofread it, make the adjustments, give it back to her. She would correct it all, print it final, give it to me to sign, and she'd mail it. And she looked at me and she said, I had no idea that ever happened. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this just helps you to understand the backdrop of generational change, right?
Yep.
Like, and this is part of it, right? Like, you were raised where this is what clean means. I have that same thing. You and I are a lot alike in a lot of things in life, right? Like Jeff and I are a lot alike on what really clean means, or doing something right, and doing it well, right? But this isn't stuff that's getting built into a lot of people, because so many people, you know, so many of you maybe have come up in a home where there wasn't a dad potentially to help you with things that dads would normally help you or be there to guide you, right? And so it's made that very difficult for you in your life. The thing that we need to make sure on that point, and we'll move on here to another point, and we'll begin to wrap this episode. The thing that we need to make sure we understand is look at the setting of the people, right? Let's look at our setting, look at where they're at. Literally, what's the setting when we're dealing with somebody? Look at their body language, right? Are they happy? Are they receptive? Are they angry? Look at their facial expressions. Listen to the tone in their voice, right? Look at the emotion that's coming out of them, right? These are all things that will help you remove blocks and be able to communicate and use the most powerful thing, your words, to move and motivate people to do things, okay? One of the things that, the second thing that I want to mention today before we close this episode is that communicating with the wrong method and the wrong response at the wrong time can be a big problem in your success, right? In order to be a good communicator, you have to know how to communicate, what method to use, what kind of response, right? Because in the world we live in today, what you say can be taken differently depending on, in this generation, things that we would have said to each other today could be taken completely different in this generation if we say them. Words just mean different things, you know. I mean, my son uses words and I'm like, you know, I'm going to pick that word up and I'll be cool and use it. And then I'm like, I can't pick it up.
Yeah,
I can't,
that's awkward.
I can't,
Yeah.
I can't insert that word into my, you know, the word cap, right? They use the word cap. And then there's some
Slay.
other one. Yeah.
Slay.
There's some other one the other day that I was thinking of that I heard him say. And I'm like,
Doesn't
I
work.
just can't do it. I mean, I just can't do it. So, you know, one of the things that also makes it tough in communication for this generation is in the market, 70% of the people prefer to do it when it's convenient. Now, I want you to you'd be like, okay, so what's the big deal about that? I don't feel like texting you back. I don't feel like, here's the problem. You have no sense of priority, right? And so you feel like, well, if I get to it tonight, I'll text you or I'll email you back, right? But here's the problem with that, and we're going to talk a little more in depth on this. But if you put things off, in essence, procrastinate, in reality, many times, a lot of stuff can happen between when you hear or get something and you decide to go back and react to it. So that's really interesting. Here's the other thing. 73% of you prefer to do communication in person. 73% still want in-person interaction and relationship. And you might say that's crazy, but it's really, really true. The problem is you may prefer it, but the statistics of people who do it isn't that high because they want it, but there's anxiety and there's frustration about it. Okay. And so as a result of that, it really does impact things. Stella, you got something you want to say, hon? Is there any thoughts? Anything you want to say? Are you getting tired? You want to know how much longer? Yeah, probably, let's just say 5 minutes. How's that? Almost done. Is Bun hungry?
Bun hungry.
All right. You're doing great.
You're doing awesome.
Yeah, you're doing great. Anything else you want to tell us about Dad that we need to know?
This should be good.
Anything? How do you like do you like talking to Mom and Dad about things you need?
Dad always says interesting, and that's different.
Well, yeah, that's different.
Interesting, that's different.
Interesting, and that's different.
That's a good way. That's a good way to communicate.
Yep.
That's a good way to communicate. That's an
Yeah.
interesting phrase. So here's an interesting fact. We won't talk about this, but realize that people write differently than they text. Test this out on yourself. Decide you're going to send a message to somebody, write it down, and then go text it. And what they found is that people literally write differently than the way that they text. There's a variance between those two different ways when they actually come out. As we talk about this and look at communication, one of the biggest problems is that if we use the wrong method, right? So if we text, one of the biggest problems I have is through email or text. I have had situations where I had relationship problems that came because of an email or a text that somebody got and they misunderstood it.
Right.
Because you don't have, like, if I'm talking like right now to somebody, right? I'm talking to you who are listening in the audience, and I'm saying this to you. You can see me, you can see my emotion, you can see my gestures, you can hear the tone of my voice. But if I send you a text and I say this to you, if you're in a bad mood and you get my text, you might think, well, what's his problem, right? Because it's been proven that if you are in a bad mood and you get a text or an email from somebody and you're having a bad day, you read their text or email negatively. And you may take from it something that they're not even saying. Right. Because you lose the ability to see them, hear them, watch them, right? So it's very important that you know the difference, right, between when do I send a text or an email to somebody. Mostly for those of you watching, it's text, not email. And when do I need to pick up the phone, no matter how uncomfortable it is, and have a conversation, right? There are just times when that needs to take place. And one of the dangers is that if you respond quickly or in a wrong way, you can be completely misunderstood. And that turns into what I would call a rolling dark damage situation. Okay, a rolling dark damage. And what's that mean? That means it's something that starts to go and it's dark and it's wrong and it starts damaging and hurting other people, right? And I think you guys know what I'm talking about, right? We misunderstand something, we respond, other people see it, now other people grab it, they take it, and it's rolling. It starts to just, before long, there's 100 people who hear this thing, and you guys know who are listening. If I tell Jeff a story, and Jeff tells Stella a story, and Stella tells that story to Whitney, and then Whitney tells it to Ethan, the original story that I told is probably not going to be exact by the time it gets to Ethan and he tells it back to me. Because every person, there's something that either maybe gets tweaked, added, deleted, right? Something little will take place. And so this is what I'm talking about. If you get misunderstood because you respond in the wrong way, or you say something too quick without thinking about your response in the way you communicate, it can turn into a rolling, dark, damaging situation, right? In your relationship, in multiple relationships, it can hurt your career, it can hurt your job. I mean, it's something that you really, really, really need to be careful with, and will really, really make a difference. So, I'll tell you what, we're gonna come down to the end and wrap today. We've talked about a lot of different things. One of the things that I would bring you back to is the word revelation, which is the word for today, right? A revelation is something that surprisingly comes out of nowhere and is very impactful in your life. And that's what I'm hoping that maybe just a few minutes that we've been able to spend together talking about relationships, and we talk about communication in all of those aspects, that you've heard something today that was new and a revelation to you. And I would urge you today to take one thing, just take one that you've heard, one of the couple things we've talked about in the way you communicate, right? Thinking about the other person's style, their communication, and implement that and practice it in your life. They say if you do something 21 times, it becomes a habit. So I would tell you, try and implement something and do it in your life, and it will become part of who you are. I want to thank Whitney, Jeff. Thank you, Stella, for being here with us today. And Stella, any closing comments you have for us? Anything you want to say as we close? Anything at all? Are the buns are telling us goodbye?
The buns are saying bye.
All
and
right.
You like kangaroos.
Tell them to like and subscribe.
Yeah. Tell everybody to subscribe to our podcast. Can you tell them that?
Tell them to like and subscribe.
Can you say, would you like and subscribe? Say that in your mic. You want to say that? She doesn't want to say it. I'm going to say it. Like and subscribe if you would. Find us also on YouTube at Talk Level Up. You'll see short videos of these, and also long videos are there for you to take a look at of the podcast as well. And I would tell you, please do something with what we've done today. Next week we'll be doing episode 2, talking about communication, and we're going to be talking about overanalyzing things. We're going to talk about anxiety and the fear of rejection in communication. We're going to talk again about the quick responses, and we're also going to talk next week about going beyond hearing and listening to execution, right? To doing something. There's a big difference between I hear it here and I listen and do something with it. So these are all things that I think, they're basic things. This isn't like a new textbook that somebody introduced we're talking about. This is basic stuff, but it's good for us to see it differently, hear it differently, and be able to put something into our life. So, hey, for now, we're going to let you go. Remember, you're unique. There's only one you. I'm John, and I'm out.